Assalamualaikum everyone. How's everyone doing? So yeah, thank you for joining us today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to continue the conversation from yesterday's session. We had the panel on Islamic economy, and we heard a lot from you. So I think I'm going to continue from that rather than asking you to repeat everything.
By all means, yeah.
So yeah, so firstly, welcome. How are you doing today?
Salam everyone. I'm doing all right, thank you. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
not too bad.
That's great. Awesome. So yeah, yesterday, I heard about how you started the website in 2011 as for Moz, and then you said, okay, I'm going to do the app 2014.
Yeah.
So just tell us, like, once you had the app, the first version of it, right, and you had to now think about getting people to use the product. What was that journey like? The early days of any.
Early days, depressing. Because literally, I remember you build this thing and you get it live, and I have to Google Analytics, still do actually, to see how many people were using the app. And I used to open it and see how many people are on the app at this very moment. And it used to be like 6 people. And for ages, it was like not many people. So there's definitely a period where I was like, did I just quit am I the joker who quit his job for nothing?
Yeah.
And it was for a long period of time, actually. Like the early days, the traction was very, very slow. And it was kind of interesting because, the hard bit, and like, so we're in some form, we're like a marketplace. So, the app only works if there were guys and girls on there, men and women. Just got to stop saying guys and girls, men and women on the platform. So it only works when that's the case. And obviously if it's one-sided, if you just have a load of men on there, the app doesn't work, and similarly if you have a load of women on there, it doesn't work. So you're trying to build, both sides of this marketplace, if you will. And it's one of the hardest things to do because, there are many platforms out there. A lot of people have startup ideas, which are effectively marketplace ideas, which are one of the hardest because you need both sides.
Yeah.
And so, for me in the early days, it was trying to get enough people on there. And, imagine you come to, and which was happening when people signed up, you sign up and there's like barely anyone on the platform. So the first thing you're going to do is say, this is dead, I'm leaving. And they would leave. And you're trying to get over that pain barrier early on. So initially, it used to be that you would sign up, you would literally see 3 people a day, and that was it. Times have changed. So you'd look at 3 people, yes, no, and then that's it. You're locked out for 24 hours, literally. Actually, back then, technically, you were locked out till midnight UK time.
Okay.
And then as the app got busier, midnight was when you would get your new profiles, and every midnight, the app would crash because the way it was built. So we changed that. But yeah, literally, so it was going over that period. So initially it was like 3 people. Then it was, as we grew a bit more, it was 5 people a day. And then it was 10, and then it was 15 and 20 and blah, blah. And now it's about 50 to 100 per day that we let you kind of see.
Okay.
Getting over that, so how did I kind of grow those numbers? It was a long, slow process, I have to admit. Initially, and it seems strange, but back then, smartphones weren't that great, apps weren't that great. Just in general, the whole app ecosystem wasn't as advanced as it is now. And equally, especially for Muslims, you remember, we whether we like it or not, we'll take cues from the Western world and mainstream. And mainstream dating apps were taboo relatively for mainstream audiences. They were still a little bit creepy, a little bit seedy, didn't have a great rep. So when I'm going out there saying, oh, we're an app for Muslims, people would automatically think of all the hookup and all the rubbish apps in the West or in the mainstream apps, which aren't really centered around, marriage and something more wholesome. So for a lot of people, they were like, hell no, I'm not touching that. That's not an app for me. So I was trying to kind of already early days trying to change minds, but yeah, it's very hard to do. Eventually though, and I think there were 2 reasons why eventually I got over that hurdle, it was just because the need was that great and what was out there was that bad. I look back thinking, obviously to some degree it's easier and harder to build a platform like ours now. Timing is so important. Back then, there was no real competition, I have to admit. There was websites which no one liked anyway, so all right, in my head, whatever. And then that was kind of it. You had obviously the offline methods, the restaurant aunties and all that, but for me, fundamentally, I don't think they don't work, but for a lot of people, they don't work. Because it's not, they want to be empowered, they're not interested in, they don't want some middle person telling them, all right, you're a guy, here's a girl, and that's literally their version of compatibility, and there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, they tell you about the background of all the family members and what they've studied.
And you're like, all right, how does that affect my marriage? But
yeah. Cool, okay. So then I think later you decided to go to, as you said, you kind of got over that hurdle. Was that before you went to Y Combinator?
Oh, yeah, way before. So in the early days, it was literally So I used to, it was just me, and so you're kind of doing everything. So I used to find out about any social where I knew there were Muslims there. And in London, there's a fairly good kind of social, professional Muslim scene, I have to admit. So events and random things, charity events and all sorts. And I used to just to go with these, and I had these literally like a business cards printed out that just said, you know, Muzmatch, which was back then, and then on the reverse what the platform was, or what the app was. And I had about 80,000 of these printed out. And at every social I go to, I literally just hand cards out to people. And people got sick of me very quickly, I have to admit. People got really, they're like, oh, it's that guy again. You know, and especially a lot of women wouldn't take the card. So I used to just drop it in their purse, like stuff like that. I was all sorts. I'll put it in their pocket when they're not looking. All that stuff I used to do. But it's weird because now, like literally now, I'd be at a social and I meet someone and I've met people who still have that card from X years ago in their wallet or purse, which is pretty amazing. So a lot of people remember those kind of days, but it was being annoying to people. It was telling them all that. I used to literally outside, I still remember, I have memories of going for Jummah at different mosques. And then, you know, I used to do the 2 rakats, that was it. I used to run out and then to the entrance and then start handing cards out to people as they walk out. But it's hard because you're one guy and 1,000 people coming out of the mosque at one time. There's multiple exits. You're kind of running between, you know, it's kind of stressful trying to do it, but obviously you're trying by all means to get the word out. You know, I'd literally go to like Asian or Muslim areas and I'd drop a little card on every windscreen, all that kind of stuff. It's all like I said, it's unglamorous, but when you have no budget and you're just trying to start something up, that's what you have to do. And one thing I always try and remind people, because you know, so many, especially Muslims who are starting a business, and the first thing they say is, all right, I'm going to either raise money or I'm going to spend money on like online ads. I'm like, no, like don't, because within reason you have to prove that there's actual value in what you've got kind of organically before you jump down that road, because it's the quickest way to lose money by doing all that stuff. But yeah.
And again, you were doing all these things because it's like a consumer-focused product.
And you have to build, like I said, it's the marketplace. You have to build both sides. You have to get men on there, you have to get women on there. And it's trying to, you know, like I said, organically build the company or the platform itself.
Like as opposed to if it was like a B2B, as we say.
Then
your marketing tactics have to be completely
different. B2B is wildly different. Consumer tech, which is obviously what this is, a marketplace, is such a different arena to work in. And it is genuinely one of the hardest areas to be in. You know, B2B, like I said, you know, it's the art of sales in terms of closing deals and exactly. Lead times and all that kind of stuff. Consumer and tech, and especially in consumer, don't forget with something like this, not just this, but most consumer tech, customers are extremely demanding of what they want and extremely, I'm not going to say fickle, but if they're not happy, they'll leave. You know, the bar is that high, which makes it very difficult, because even to get to be I think back now, and I think the early version of the app, the first version, was quite simple. It did the job, but it was quite simple. Some people still say to me, oh, I prefer the first version. It makes me a bit depressed. But they're like, it's quite, you know, what the app was and the way it worked was quite simple. But then the quality, I would say, I compare it to what we have now, it's night and day. And I think now, if you're an app trying to launch something, can you get away with that quality now? Probably not, just because the whole market's moved along so much. So I guess it makes it easier and harder to set something up.
Yeah. So what benefit or what value was Y Combinator in your journey then? Sorry, I seem to be answering you 2 questions behind on each question. All right, so Y Combinator, here we go. So we basically grew the platform, and we were free. We were making no money. We weren't monetizing at all. And even doing YC was such an accident. And I still remember, there was what they call the American Muslim Consumer Consortium, AMCC. There was some organization in the States, and they had, I think I hadn't really heard of them, and they reached out to me saying, oh, we're doing some sort of entrepreneur pitching competition thing, whatever, in New Jersey, I think it was. Would you like to take part? I was like, great. Flew out there. I think I was one of the, either the first time or one of the first times I met Chris as well. Chris, I think, he was one of the panel members, I think, from memory. Anyway, so did this pitch, didn't win. But one of the guys on the panel, he had a startup that eventually sold to Airbnb. Really nice guy. And we were just talking about my business and how it was growing and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, oh, you know what? You should apply to this thing called Y Combinator. I didn't know anything about it. You know, it was a British company, right? I never heard of it. So I did a bit of homework, and I was like, all right, let's apply. So I applied. And Y Combinator is, I think it's changed somewhat now, but generally speaking, it's something like, at the time it was
7,000 companies apply each batch. They do like 2 batches a year. It's like an accelerator program, basically. So they do 2 batches a year. About 800 people are called out to interview. So back then, maybe it's changed, but back then they would fly you out to San Francisco for an interview. For a 10-minute interview, that's it. And then about 100 companies were selected. So the very first time we did it, and we were interviewed by the founder of Gmail, Paul Buchheit. So yeah, he's big time in Silicon Valley. So they were grilling us 10 minutes. Quite intense interview. And at the end of it, they said, look, we really like you. We like what the mission is. We like all that. But the problem is, in this space, you just need to be making some money. We were like, great, okay, back to square one. So literally from that day, we thought, okay, you know what? We're going to try and start monetizing. So we had ideas. We already had ideas of things we wanted to monetize. But what I didn't want to do was, and I talked about this on the previous talk, but I didn't want to just suddenly paywall big sections of the app.
Yeah.
I already had ideas of stuff, and I thought, right, what we'll do is we'll add new features, and they'll be paid features, and that's the way we'll do it. So literally, we built brand new features, had them paid, and it was kind of interesting because the first day that we released a feature, we didn't kind of announce it to our customers. We just kind of got it live, and we had a little sound effect for when somebody would buy it, and literally they started making the noise, and you're like, oh, okay, and then it starts becoming annoying, the noise, because so many people are buying it, and you've got to take the sound off, which are good problems to have. So that started doing well. So we had 2 months, I think, of track record of growing the app as well as monetizing.
Yeah.
We applied to YC. Hamza got called out to San Francisco again for interview. Interviewed, and then Hamza got into YC. And I think for us, as a British company, knowing that in the UK, I think the appetite for tech wasn't that great in the first place. They're very risk averse. And then number two, especially when you say Muslim and they're like, see you later, I'm not interested. Definitely I felt that, saw it, and I realized very early on, I'm not even going to waste time trying to raise in the UK. They're just not ready for it at all. And it kind of made sense for us to try and go to the States. So YC for us, YC are behind Airbnb, Stripe, Dropbox, a whole bunch of companies. For us, it's kind of like having Harvard on your CV as a business. So definitely helped us in terms of that early ways. But I say to a lot of people, a lot of the knowledge of YC or whatever, it's all on YouTube. It literally is, there's no kind of secret sauce at all. YC is a brand, and it's I think in my eyes, it's a very investor-friendly brand in terms of investors are like, well, statistically, if YC invested, then the chances are that company is probably going to do better than a non-YC company, therefore I'll try and invest. And for that single reason, if you're trying to raise, I would recommend YC. If you just want to learn about growth and all that stuff, trust me, you can do it all free on the internet. It's all there, but yeah. Yeah,
so did it add, speaking of growth, right?
Yeah.
So did it help from expansion to US perhaps, or no?
Honestly, no, I don't think so. I think the benefit of YC was very centered around doing our seed round, I have to admit. So we raised 1.75, and it was interesting. So we were the first, we are the first, Muslim-centric startup backed by YC. Because I was curious if they'd invested in, not necessarily a Muslim founder, but where the company itself is serving Muslims explicitly. And so we were the first for them, which is kind of good, I think, for on our part to try and hopefully open that door in terms of a mindset for the Muslim market. And no doubt YC, they're trying to look ahead, so they've definitely intentionally been looking abroad, internationally, Africa, Asia, all these different markets, because they know within reason that's where the next, I guess, phase of growth is. So yeah, did it help us in terms of actual brand and of the company and the growth? I don't think so. Some of the tactics that they use in terms of growth stuff, like I said, it's all on the internet. I think we were lucky in that when we were doing YC, I already knew kind of the work that we needed to do, so we were just busy doing that, if that makes sense, and focused on the raise. It was interesting at demo day, so YC effectively you have 3 months of working with YC to grow your business, and you have a pitch at the end of the 3 months, 2-minute pitch that you practice to death. And I have to admit, like our pitch, so I tried to make sure that for what we do, I don't want to be scary as a Muslim company, so we use humor in the pitch. So our opening line of the pitch was, Muslims don't date, we marry, knowing that all the audience is pretty much non-Muslim. And like with that, A, they laughed, but B, they got it. Like they were like, oh, I get it now. I get why these guys need their own platform. And then obviously we talked about the growth and stuff. And I have to admit, after demo day, we had so many investors coming up to us really interested because they like the concept of it. So we were kind of lucky in that by that stage, we could be a bit fussy about, all right, which investors should we go for? Who's actually helpful? And there were actually a lot of investors we just said, we'll come back to you.
Right. And there's a lot of founders these days I hear, and I mean, Chris also, like just having talked to him, the whole experience of having investors and how they may impact your ability to make decisions,
Yeah.
independently, is something people have to think a lot about. So what sort of thinking? do you
Yeah,
have
my
in
advice
decision
is
making?
genuinely set the tone right at the start,
Okay.
like literally. So early on, I was very clear that look, this is hopefully a Muslim-led company. It'll have Muslim values in how we operate. There'll be stuff we do, stuff we don't do because of those values. And I said, you just have to trust me that that's what we're going to do. And basically, don't interfere. It was kind of a little bit clear up front on that. Second thing is when we did both our seed and Series A, it's kind of a healthy, you want to keep investors, I think, at a healthy distance. I'm going to be very blunt. Value-add investors are extremely hard to find. They all say, oh, we're value-add investors, we'll help you with this. Genuinely yet to meet many founders where investors have been truly, truly helpful. So for the most part, even now, we've raised, $9 million in total. And within reason for the investors, I send them one email every quarter with an update of the company. And that's kind of it.
Okay.
Some of the investors I talk to a bit more on a more friendly basis and they check in or they actually are a bit helpful, which is good. But for the most part, that's what I do. I keep them at a healthy distance. So I keep them informed of what's going on because they have a right to and they should know. But maybe it's the banker in me, my old banker mindset, but I'm like, I don't want interference. I kind of know what I'm doing and just leave us to do it. And I do think, alhamdulillah, like we're lucky we've grown.
Okay.
Maybe it would have been the case that if we had major problems of really struggling about what the hell we're doing and we've made a lot of bad decisions, maybe that would have changed. I don't know. But so far we've been lucky where we've not needed interference on that perspective. So for me, I do say, like I said, set the tone. I remember talking to some early investors when we were doing our Series A, and I knew I didn't want to raise from them, so I was just talking kind of very off the record, and I said, oh, it's kind of interesting how some VCs will literally chuck a term sheet at you, so with a whole bunch of conditions and clauses and all this stuff in. I was like, why do you guys do that? And literally he said, because, basically, if we can, we'll try it. Because most founders aren't clued up on what a lot of the things are, and quite easily say, oh, you want a board seat? Yeah, great. You want this? Okay, great. The thing is, once you've given it, you can't get it back, So, even now, I've always favored simplicity in everything, because it just keeps your life simple. It saves you time. So even now, for good or bad, we don't have a board,
Okay.
and we're at Series A, which maybe is not a good thing, but whatever. We kept things very simple because it allows me to just focus on the business, which is what I want to do. So like I said, set the tone early on. You can push back a lot, trust me, more than you think. Investors will always try it. They'll always want more because if they can get more out of you, control, rights, wherever, they will. I kind of push back on that.
So, but I think being able to push back, you also helped. Don't you think sometimes founders do it out of desperation because they really want the funding?
Yeah. There's a bit of that. So you have to. It's kind of like you have to be prepared to walk away if so. And you're right. If you're, like I said, and I remember giving someone else some similar advice where if you're in a position where you've got strong traction, strong data, then you're right. You can push back a lot because you know what, they'll be back. They want a piece of this. If you don't, then there's going to be stuff where you're like, all right, I'll give up these rights or whatever, or I'll give you this kind of treatment, etc., etc. We were lucky in that, alhamdulillah, I always say let the data tell the story, let the revenues, let the traction, because it does. That's your ammo when you're speaking to an investor, because it cuts through all the rubbish. You can hype everything up, but ultimately, I think for the most part, investors are, I'm not going to say simple, but a lot of them literally will just look at what you've got, the data, etc., and make a decision. They're like, all right, there's clearly something here. Founders, not crazy, let's go for it, right? I do think it's relatively simple on that perspective. The data tells a big story. Probably the biggest shift for us in terms of conversations with investors was just producing revenue. I'll tell you, it wasn't like night and day, because before then, everything's a bit of a hope, whereas after then, it's like, all right, people will pay for this. Okay, fine, that makes sense.
Okay, okay. So speaking of data, actually, yesterday you were talking about how you use data in a lot of your algorithms and matching and all that. So while I was listening to that, I was reminded of Airbnb, another Y Combinator. They had this issue. It's something was trending on Twitter. I don't know. Are you aware of Airbnb while black?
Oh yes, yeah. Around diversity, yes.
So essentially, the data set they were looking at wasn't necessarily making it obvious to them that this problem exists, and then people had to flag it for them, but the way it was done very publicly on Twitter and all that. So similarly, I would say, just like you said, you had to set the stage when you're doing your pitch that Muslims don't date, they marry, right? Like you have to look at the market and figure out what it is that we need. So how do you perhaps prepare or for things that are not going to show up in the data? You talked about trust and safety, but you know, like I talk to a lot of women and they talk about sometimes they've had issues, right? And I've used the app too, and I've had issues and I've reported it successfully, like it was dealt with.
Good.
So, but
Otherwise,
my point
ultimately-
being is how do you, because a lot of these services that we're trying to build now using technology as a solution, we have to really understand the nuance of the Muslim community. Similarly, how the Black community needed to be understood better. So, like, what are some things as people who are building for the Muslim economy can do when the data may not show up?
A biggest thing and is kind of make yourself open to the feedback. Probably the biggest thing. Like I said, people stop me in the street, people email me, I got 1,000 messages, people ask me for random customer support, whatever. I try and be as helpful as possible, because generally speaking, so many times someone had told me something and they probably inadvertently told me something about how they use it or some problem that they're facing that we never thought of. So I get a lot of value out of that, or even at the very minimum, sometimes I find a bug that they didn't realize was a bug, if that makes sense. So I find that very helpful. That's probably the first bit in terms of, like I said, just an open mindset of, all right, we'll take off. And we have like a big board of customer feedback of everything. And some stuff we can do, some stuff we can't. We're overwhelmed with it, which is great. One thing, even within the app, we make it super easy for anyone to get in touch with us. So literally, when you sign up, your first match is with Muzz, like literally. So it's the easiest way you can get hold of our team. That said, even our team are so we've got, like I said, 20 women who all day long are dealing with feedback, customer support, etc., etc. So a lot of that feedback, a lot of the ideas, a lot of the stuff that we've either designed wrong or right or whatever, they actually feed all the way back up to us, which is really good. So like one benefit I had, and the reason why I did customer support for, I think it was the first 4 years I did customer support, where I was dealing with the emails, replying to people and approving profiles, all that. And I was still coding the app, I was still fixing bugs. We had a very, very small team back then, but I still wanted to do it because I could see I was learning a lot about how people are actually using it. And it is valuable, I have to admit. So I would definitely say, and one thing I tell my team is no one should be too snobby to do anything. I was never too snobby to do customer support, to do some of the more mundane tasks, because I'm like, through it, I'll learn, And so I didn't mind. The right thing is trying to get the right cutoff of, all right, when do you need to focus on something else now? Which is always a bit of a hard one. But for me, it's definitely for me is exposing yourself to as much of the business and your customers. And it is, a lot of people find it hard to, I guess, to take feedback, and sometimes people are overly, to some extent you're stubborn as a founder because you're like, I've got this idea, you're convinced no one else can see the world the way you do, and you'll be proven right and you need to go down this road, great. But then I think the really good founders, I think relatively, are people who can take all sorts of feedback and somehow prioritize them and say, you know what, there might be some truth in some of this, I need to think about this or be more aware of this. Or equally saying, and sometimes to a customer, now you're talking rubbish, you're wrong, and I think you're wrong, and I'm just going to carry on this particular path. And like I said, the answer will be proved out in the data ultimately. So sometimes, we get tons of ideas where you're like, it might sound great in principle, but not in reality. And unfortunately, you either try and solve it, or you're like, we can't solve it, we're going to move on, we're not going to do it. And it's a bit of a conscious decision, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So do you think, like, when you're building for the Muslim audience, right, for everyone who is trying to cater to the customers in that market, it's only going to be trial and error that's going to teach us what is the right kind of, basically how the app needs to behave, or the technology the solution has to be. Because a lot of times we start at the more mainstream, product. Like, for example, LaunchGood, the inspiration was Kickstarter, right? So even now we have some features that were kind of inspired by that, but then the audience has moved on. Like, the customer base we have is very charity focused. It's not as much like looking to have their ideas supported or new products supported. So we have to think about that. And for us, it's like, okay, so now it has become a platform where people are coming to give their sadaqah, right? And Muslims use sadaqah so many different ways. We use it at a time of need, like to alleviate a difficulty, a time of celebration, just because during Ramadan, obviously, and all of that. But that is different than GoFundMe.
Yeah, of course,
So do you think it's just, if you're building for this, it's just going to be trial and error? Because perhaps we don't know, nobody knows the
Yeah,
answers.
yeah, yeah. I do think to some degree, totally.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and no doubt, like, you know, and I remember, you know, like I mentioned to one of the panelists at that pitching competition I did, I remember, you know, he was kind of saying, look, like, you don't want to be ashamed to say that you took the good from the mainstream and tried to get the bad out of it and made it for the Muslim audience. There's nothing wrong with that, and for sure, like, we should be inspired. Like I say, I always, you know, and it's kind of, I think it's even an Islamic principle that, you know, good knowledge comes from anywhere. It doesn't have to necessarily just come from Islam, right?
Yeah.
If someone, or good practice or whatever. So you take the good from wherever you can. So no doubt some mainstream apps do some things really well. Some mainstream apps do some things terribly. Some mainstream apps don't necessarily have, call it this moral component or religious component at all, right? And the magic of hopefully what we do is we apply the religious mindset over some of this. Now, do I think it's straight, what do you call it here? Cookie cutter, you know? Not at all, you know? So, and I would say probably the early days, because the app was very simple in mechanics, it probably was very, very similar to mainstream apps, I'm not going to deny. It's evolved massively from then. Like, just in terms of, if you use the app, I think the magic is, like, I know we say, look, Muslims here, we all use, well, pretty much, social media, right? We all use Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. So we know the nature of some of these platforms. We know the good, we know the bad of these platforms. But we're familiar with them, we have an expectation of quality and how it should work. Same for us. When we build our app, and we've rebuilt our app 4 times now, and like literally kind of almost from the ground up.
Yeah.
So we're never afraid to just rip it apart and go, no, we're going to do this again.
Okay.
So even personally, I'm not precious about aspects of the app now. The team are like, Shaz, no more rebuilding, please. You know?
We're actually rebuilding LaunchGrid.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, it's good because you get to rip the plaster off on a lot of things, which is really good. But like, I look at the app and it's kind of in a good way. I look at the old versions and I'm like, oh, how was that ever live? It's horrible. Like literally, I'm like, who built that? You know. So it's kind of nice. And now I look at as a team have gotten better as well. The quality of what we build is so much better. Like honestly, I like having such a good team. Like, alhamdulillah, I look at our team now and like, you know, and I literally say to the team, I feel we're blessed with the team we have because it's so hard building a team, but the stuff we're able to do is the quality is so much better than we ever have, right? It really is, a credit to the team. So like our current app, our latest one, which is only technically 3 months old. So when we changed it, rebranded, the goal for me was if we win or lose our court case, we come out strong no matter what. So we worked on this new app with, you know, the first Muslim app with like voice and video profiles and all this kind of stuff that hasn't been done for the Muslim market. We worked on all that, ready to go for launch day, right, which was the 4th of May. So we were, you know, totally ready to go with this. Like I said, brand new design system, new features done, but also the framework for a lot of the new things we wanted to do. So, like I do think a few things that we've done, like I said, that other platforms, mainstream platforms, never did, but then equally other Muslim platforms copy us. The chaperone feature, no one ever did that before us. The Islamic oath that I mentioned. Our profile's probably one of the most detailed profile of any, I think like 22 data points and probably another 10 optional data points you can add to your profile. Very rich, because we know, particularly for men and women, mostly women, if you choose to have your photos private, and you're thinking, oh, how's a guy gonna ever, you know, what's he gonna see from me that's gonna make him attracted to my profile and like me and want to talk to me? Great, there has to be a lot more going on to your profile, both for men and women. So our profiles are extremely rich in what you can do. We just added a brand new feature. I'm not selling the app here, but we added another feature right now of, you know, we call it icebreakers, which is a way to, I guess, help people have a better quality conversation and also get straight to the heart of the matter of, you know, let's say for you, living with in-laws is a deal breaker. Great. In some form, you can express that on your profile and your opinion on it. Because then, when somebody matches with you, great, they can say, all right, you know what? I either agree with this or I totally don't. But it's a talking point and you kind of figure out where each other stands. So I do think this, for me, is the evolution of it. A lot of that evolution, no doubt, is based on the ideas of our customers, no question. And we're, like I said, we're very lucky that our customers are brutal to us. They are brutal. Just go on our app stores, right? The reviews we get, trust me. I have to say, sometimes it feels like a thankless task. I remember, because like I said, we have a lot of non-Muslims in the team, and somebody literally left a review saying, I met my partner on this app, blah, blah, gave us 1 star. And they were like, Shaz, literally, what do we have to do to get 4 stars of this, you know, 5 stars? And it's kind of, and I'm just like, don't worry, I'm used to it, you know, and it literally is. So it's a thankless task, but I just say, like, focus on what we're doing. We know what we're doing, it's getting people married, which is great. But like I said, I'd much rather customers were bothered about what we did and wanted to tell us, guys, this is crap, or this is really good, versus just being ambivalent. That's the worst. If your customers don't care,
exactly.
it's depressing.
It's the same thing I tell my team. If people are indifferent to what you've built, that's the worst.
Yeah,
you
totally.
either want them to hate it or love it. Like the middle ground is, I don't know if you've done user testing, but when you sit in user testing and people are just very like chill about it, it's like the worst user interface. It's like I didn't get anything.
You're like, break it, do something.
Yeah, exactly. Earlier you just mentioned the court case, right?
Yes.
So you had your whole scenario with the Match Group. So how was that for you? I mean, it's still early on in your journey as an entrepreneur, like first 10 years, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
early.
well, relatively, right? Like it's not like you're, but I guess it means that you're big enough that they were threatened, right? So what advice can you share for people in terms of how to, I think it's inevitable if you are big enough, right?
Yeah. I think to some degree, the bigger you get, the more, I guess, that kind of stuff probably will happen.
Yeah.
Because I guess you're being noticed. I mean, you can take it as a compliment that, you know what, all right, great, we were big enough that they were threatened by us and etc.
Yeah.
I'd still rather not have it. I think, so mindset of how to think about it. And some people have asked me, do you regret like going all the way on fighting this basically, or would you have backed down? And it's a hard one, and I remember this, not to get in the details of some of it, but there's definitely some mechanics of, because we were sued both in the US and in the UK, so these guys went all angles, right, to try and hurt us. So you're literally, and I was looking at it thinking, all right, what can we survive here? And that was kind of my mindset, can we survive losing in the US? No. Right, okay, well, then we're not going to fight in the US. If it's fatal for us. Can we survive losing in the UK? Probably. We'd existed for 11 years with no problem. But knowing that, it wasn't a slam dunk case at all. It's points of law. So a lot of people are like, it's maddening. How can somebody stop you using the word match? It's an English word, which was our mindset. But equally, it's a point of law of where a judge might rule on this. And, whether you like it or not, okay, whatever. The judge ruled in the way that he did. I disagree, it is what it is. And we have to crack on. No doubt I do, some people are like, that we've gone from Muzzmatch to just Muzz now, and some people are like, this is the Facebook moment, you lose the right? Yeah. I love to think it's that baller, but yeah, it's no doubt for us, and I do look at the silver lining. I still remember the day when, so you have the court case, whatever, and then my lawyer called me, like, I don't know, 2 months after. And I remember seeing his number on my phone, and I just knew, before I picked up, I was like, we lost. I don't know why, I just knew it, and my heart sank. And I literally picked up and said, we lost, didn't we? And he was like, yeah, I'm so sorry. He was devastated, right? So, and I remember that day, I was crap. I was just fed up. I was like, oh God. Because you're thinking about all the implications of it and all that. And then you're like, what the hell do we do now? And, like, even our new brand, I tell you, I'd wish to say there was tons of thought and planning that went into the new brand. There really wasn't, to some degree. I was talking to someone else, like we bought like 6-7 different domains. We hadn't really decided. We were not strong on any name at all. So it was kind of ill-prepared, but this is what I mean. Allow happy accidents to happen sometimes. Like, don't over-control it. So literally this, MUZ.com, somebody wanted $1 million. I was like, right, we're not buying that. We can't afford it. And MUZZ, some guy had it on, and he had some weird website on. And literally I just messaged him, and he'd ignored me for about 3 months. And I found him, I emailed, nothing. Found him on LinkedIn, nothing. Ignored me for ages. And then randomly he replied. And then over another 4 months or whatever, eventually managed to just buy the domain. And just didn't do anything with it. Wasn't serious about it, whatever. But then literally, we lost the court case. And I remember literally to the day, I was like, we bought this domain. I guess that's what we're just going to call ourselves. And we just went with it. And then it was quite quickly, I remember the next day I was like, you know what, I really like this name. And it really grew on me. And then the team were like, yeah, Shaz, we're really liking this new name. And I was amazed at how much we just gravitated towards it. And no doubt for us, and my mindset is always like, whatever happens, tomorrow's a new day. I was talking to someone yesterday and I'm like I've been through some proper rubbish times. And even with this, there's a depressing time. But then tomorrow is literally always a new day. When times are really bad, you just go sleep. I'm telling you, it's the best thing ever. Just go sleep, and then tomorrow, wake up, and you just go again. And literally, with that, it was kind of a similar thing where the next day, I was actually more excited about the new brand and some of the stuff we're going to do. And a big part of me was like, let's just get this legal stuff just out of the way now. Let's try and move on from this, and which is effectively what we're trying to do. Which
so
they won't let us.
Moving through your 7th.
So I remember I had one principle with the court case, which was, no matter what, I want Match Group, I don't care, I'll say it, but Match Group, I wanted them to fall off the chair when they see all the new stuff. Because and no doubt, and you look at how, in my eyes, the behaviour, no doubt there's an intent to cause us as much pain and misery as possible. Like, trust me. I think there's no question. So for me, it's like, no, what? We come out stronger and we come out fighting, and that's basically what we did. So, you know, I'd love to have been in the room when they're like, what the hell, where did this come from, you know? And alhamdulillah for us, you know, and I feel very lucky, you know, the month of May, like I said, we launched the new app, the new brand, etc. And May, for us, was a record month, alhamdulillah. So, like, we smashed every metric possible for us, which is amazing, which is the ultimate, you know, thankfully, all that hard work behind the scenes of trying to make this happen, I think, paid off. So, for us, it's definitely be optimistic, definitely realistic as well. Don't just be, there's a balance of being stubborn, like I said. Sometimes you want to be stubborn, and then sometimes you just don't. It's not worth the stress. Sometimes, if you're early on, it might actually make sense to just rebrand and move on, because it's a distraction, I have to admit. It's wasted so many hours of time, energy, money. It's cost us more than $1 million, right? So it's not an insignificant amount of money.
Yeah.
But like I said, and again, it comes down to being slightly powerful and having resources as a company, that you have the means to fight this stuff. Otherwise, people pick you off left, right, and center. You have to be able to, whether you like it or not, defend yourself. Because I always tell the team, bad times are always coming. They're always are coming, you know, like, and now we're in, let's say for a startup scene, bad times, you know, if you like it or not.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about consumer confidence isn't great, raising money isn't great, the environment isn't great. So as a company, more than ever, you need to be able to survive it, and you need to be prepared for it. One of the, not to talk too much, but one of the like principles for me, and we used to see other startups raising a ton of money, hiring a ton of people, and we're scratching our head going, what the hell? Like, how on earth can you hire that many people that quickly for them to all be good and still not lose your way? And then now with the situation we're in, kind of internally we're sharing the links of, oh, they're now downsizing, letting a load of people go. Oh, they've devalued the company now, et cetera, and there's no shortcuts. It is slow and steady, does win the race, and that's been our mindset. So slow and steady, improve the product, slow and steady, grow the team, grow hopefully your metrics. And like I said, our metrics have just done that.
Okay.
I'd love to say we had the crazy hockey stick. No, I wouldn't necessarily say that's happened.
No.
It has been progressive.
Yeah. I have so many follow-up questions.
Yeah, sorry.
But Nabil, do you have questions from the audience? So what I'm going to do, I have a quick rapid fire for you just to kind of change the energy a bit.
Go for it.
And then we'll get into the audience questions.
Cool. Okay.
So here it goes. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Crazy, annoying, what's the last one? Impatient.
Okay.
They're not good, are they? Oh man, I should have a higher opinion of myself. But a nice guy.
Who's an entrepreneur that you admire?
Not quite an entrepreneur. I don't know. I'm a Manchester United fan, football. Sir Alex Ferguson. He's probably, I've read both of his autobiographies, and one was actually written by a VC. He did the intro to it. Yeah. The reason why, sorry, it's a rapid fire. The reason why is the hard part about a business, for the most part, you've got the idea, but then the rest of it is team building, getting people excited, keeping a team together, rebuilding a team. And he's done it like 3-4 times from scratch. Absolutely killed it, and he's local to me, like Manchester. I'm from Manchester, so he's local. It was the most relatable person where I'm like, I really respect the way this person, and it's hard work, and he came from a very tough background. So all parts of it, I recommend his books because it's the essence of hard graft, and like I said, there's no shortcuts, and his experience is hard graft. Sorry.
Essence of, okay, sounds good. If a movie was made of your life, what genre would it be?
Horror.
Yeah. Who would play you?
Definitely not a rom-com. Who would play me? Oh my God, who would play me? The reluctant fundamentalist. No. Who would play me? I don't even know. It has to be someone short. Maybe, yeah. He's tall though. Yeah, I'm not going to say Riz Ahmed, no. Okay. He's a bit too dour for me. I like him. I'm sorry, I can't think of someone right now.
That's okay. What's your favorite thing about Istanbul?
Oh, Istanbul. Cheap food. Cheap, good food. It's really good.
How's the coffee at GMW you had at this one?
Very strong.
Very strong.
Yeah.
Do you recommend it?
Don't drink it all the way to the end. You have the whole Arabic coffee, you got the bit at the end. Yeah, I made the mistake of drinking too much.
Okay. All right. How many keys do you have on your keychain? Do you have a keychain?
As few as possible. I always get rid of keys that I don't need. I hate having the bulk. Okay,
sounds good. So you just talked about the book. What is that your favorite business book, or is there another one you have?
That probably is my favorite business book, yeah. And it's not really business, which is why I like it, actually. Yeah. You learn a lot, like I said, from, I'd say team management, but growing the team, personalities, all that kind of stuff. In terms of pure business books, which one? I've actually read quite a few. It is sometimes, I mean, the Apple story is good, but that's more of a broader story around Apple and right place, right time. For a lot of things, you do realize, by the way, especially in a lot of books, a lot of things are very overrated in terms of, like, we're told a particular story about startups and success and all that, and a lot of it, trust me, is slightly glorified, and it's the way the media write the story. A lot of it, I'm telling you, it's just hard graft, and it is right place, right time. Some businesses work at that time, and you've got to be able to hopefully spot that. And some businesses, it's just not ready. You're either too early or too late, and trying to get a handle on that. Or if you are too early, trying to survive long enough till the time comes. So yeah, that's probably the two big lessons I have from any business book I've read.
Okay. What word do you have a hard time pronouncing?
What word do I have a hard time pronouncing? Spelling conscious. It's an annoying word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, it's vulnerable. That's
I
have a hard time.
Vulnerable, yeah.
Yes.
I can't say my R's either, so
Yeah.
I say W.
Okay. So, yesterday you were saying, so this is the last one. Just yesterday you were saying when you were doing Moz, initially you had a website and then you're like, it has to be an app.
Yeah.
Basically the technology solution was wrong. So are there things now that you see which you think should be done differently?
Well, I do. So one thing is, and you actually slightly touched on it in terms of like, how do we look at what's different to the market? So, I look at, how apps work now, profile, and, mainstream apps have the swipe methodology, and, we don't have that. Swiping's dead. We just have a like and pass. But even for me, I think of, all right, is that the best way of doing it? Is there a better way of how do you connect with someone and find out if you like each other, etc.? So for me, and even for us, we're already kind of building, I don't want to talk about it too much, but we're building what hopefully I think is the future of what Muzz is, and it's definitely not exactly what it is now. So again, call it the fifth big rebuild of the platform, but for me it's big because I'm trying to take more of a product gamble, but try and look way into the future of, all right, what do I think this can be and become? And it's hard because you're going in some sort of iteration, because we could make a massive leap, and like I said, market might be like, no, we're not ready for this, or you guys are crazy, what the hell have you done? So it'll either succeed or fail, but for us it's trying to look ahead of, all right, how can we do things a little bit differently in this space? Hopefully that guides the space a bit more. So yeah, I don't want to go too much into it, but that's kind of one mindset I have around, I guess, how we build the product on that.
Okay, cool. Reveal?
Yeah, we've got a few questions, so if it's already answered,
okay.
Just let me know. Just because you've got the mic, maybe you could just repeat.
Oh yeah. Oh, actually, yeah.
So the first question is, has offline marketing been impactful for us?
So has offline marketing been impactful for you? And actually, I want to ask you particularly about that big billboard thing that you did.
Which one? We've done many.
Well, the latest is, I don't know, which one was the latest, but the one where it's this guy in the UK was looking for
Find Malika wife. That went viral. So the offline stuff for sure, it's great for brand building. It's not great for getting sign-ups, I have to admit. So if you think, we're going to do a campaign on the train or billboards and telling people are going to sign up, no, it doesn't work that way at all. And we don't see that, and we've done quite a lot. But so there's always whenever we do we call it out of home when you do, tube ads or billboards or whatever. Whenever you do it, I always tell the team, the mark of it being good enough is, if you walk past it, would you take a picture and send it to your friend? Because I'm like, if you would, then it's worth doing. If it's not and it's a bit boring and safe, then forget it. It's just not worth it at all. Because it's hard enough to stand out. I was walking through Istanbul, I was walking up the road, and I was looking at the ads that were out there, and I was literally thinking, my God, most of them are quite boring, and most people will probably just walk straight past a lot of these ads, and it's a waste of time. So that's for me, when you're doing it, that's what you have to think about. Yeah, in terms of the brand, I have to admit, even like I said, our team is, we've got a lot of non-Muslims working in the company. A lot of them had heard of us through our tube ads, through our billboard campaigns, through the media press that we've got. So it does help cement the brand of what we exist. And Match Group will hate it, but because of the court case and the whole press around it, and I was very transparent with the story because I wanted to share the inside scoop of what the hell is going on and how does it all, what happens. And literally millions of people have read that. A lot of people, particularly non-Muslims, have seen all of that and understood, oh my God, there's a platform for Muslims. Great, they never knew about that. And knew we exist and knew why we exist. So it's good in terms of, like I said, the overall brand, but not necessarily in terms of direct sign-ups.
So how do you measure that it's good for overall brand?
The magic question, which every marketer would love to answer. It's a hard one. there's so many methodologies looking like upticks in certain areas and where people
Yeah.
sign up. I don't know. I'm still not fully convinced. I do think you have to slightly persist on it. But equally for us, we're still looking at more than half of our sign-ups every day come organically. It's word of mouth, people telling friends. I always say the best thing ever for our branding, for our marketing, is that the product actually works. It gets people married because it's the surest way. Men and particularly women talk when if they have found someone on a particular platform or means that works. People talk. They're like, you know what? Don't tell everyone, but this thing it worked for me, and that's how I met my partner. Great, and that's how we grow, and that's how we have grown even up till now. So. Definitely, and like I said, there's no shortcuts. You could do out-of-home, and we didn't do billboards and all that until quite late in our game, which probably is the right answer. Don't do it early because I don't think it's worth it.
Okay.
It's a lot of money, and I don't think it is worth it.
A follow-up on that. How do you determine the risk reward? Because a lot of people would love to go viral at everything they do, but they're not willing to put the risk out there.
Yeah.
How do you determine? Because all of your ads that I've seen, they're all head-to-heads.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the idea. Yeah.
What do you determine that risk element? Where's your cutoff?
I guess it is if it feels too safe and too ordinary. There's a balance because no doubt, and we try and be tongue-in-cheek in our marketing, but equally for me, and I remember in the UK especially, I know more non-Muslims are going to see this ad than Muslims, no question. So I have to make it at least vaguely interesting for them, but equally I want to show Muslims we can be fun. We're not all serious and hardcore, whatever.
Yeah.
We can have a laugh and we can be light-hearted as well, because maybe some of my personality goes through that as well, of being a bit tongue-in-cheek and we don't take ourselves too seriously. But in terms of risk reward, it is and maybe it is, you just do, rather than doing a big camp, I was speaking to another company 2 weeks ago and they spent 100 grand on billboards. And I was like, what the hell, that's a lot of money, right? And maybe it is, if you've got a really killer idea, just buy one big billboard in one location, and maybe that costs a couple of grand, and run it for a week, 2 weeks, and that's it, and see what happens.
So you're one of those people who just kind of wants to try out the idea and see if there's traction and then go further.
You can. So I think we're lucky in that we have the resources, but I think we believe in the strength of our idea, where we're like, all right, we'll hit a sufficient mass and we'll go hard, go home.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if you want to be if you want to get the risk reward right, and if you think you've got a strong idea, just do one, just see what happens. It's a tricky one because you have to pick your spot really right.
Yeah.
But there's no shortcuts to it. Equally, send it even as an image on WhatsApp to a bunch of people and see do people share it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a good way of doing it as well.
Okay. So just speaking of marketing and growth, there's one question here about going to France. So I think you were mentioning yesterday you have multiple languages, that your app's in multiple languages, right? So at what point did you make a decision, okay, now we have to have a non-English app?
Quite early, to be honest. So like I said, our app was global in nature from day one because of the way the app works, algorithm, and it uses your location to figure out all that stuff. So it was early from day one. And I think it was 2018, so this is really 3 years, sorry, 3 hours I wish, 3 years after launching the app, where I was like, let's start thinking about localization. Let's get this app localized into all these languages and building the framework to do that and doing it. And I think we did, 13 languages, and now it's 15, we've added a couple more. We did it super early on because, every day that passes is a day that organically someone can sign up. Okay. So I'm thinking, well, look, why make it difficult for someone? Let's add all these languages. Because then, like I said, it'll inform us later of where we need to focus on. So we added all these languages. France, like I said, organically just started picking up itself, which shows...
Meaning you have data that you can
use. We've got data that shows, all right, well, people are somehow hearing about it in France, in Morocco, in a whole bunch of countries. So it's kind of helpful for us because it does steer what we're doing. And then we make a call of, all right, well, where should we spend our time, money, and effort?
So in terms of resources or kind of getting it translated, was that cumbersome or like an overwhelming task?
I think we made probably life a little bit difficult for ourselves. So initially we went, money was a little bit harder to come by then. So initially we actually used our community. We wanted to get our community involved. So we got our community to help us with all the translations. So literally we paid people. We said, all right, if you know your language and know English really well, great. We've got a big spreadsheet of all the English strings, text in our app, and we want you to translate them. And so people did. And the quality was mixed. And then we managed to kind of put that into the app. And then over time, we've kind of improved how we do it. And we've got a translation agency because, now if we do marketing, it needs to be translated. Our website, all that kind of stuff needs to be translated. And it does cost, So we negotiated a lot to get a good rate for the translation work.
So basically, you have to maintain it and.
You have to maintain it. One big bugbear, which will always be the case, and this is why it's so important to have hopefully people on the ground or people local to the area, is you always need real people to be reading it over and checking that there's nothing crazy in here. Because we've had, even though we use translation companies, etc., sometimes people say to us, "Oh, this translation is really awkward. No one talks like that."
Yeah.
And it's a bit weird, and you're like, "Flipping out, did someone just Google Translate this or what?" I don't know. I hope not, because we're paying for it. But you do need, I guess, real people to be going through it and spotting odd stuff, because it can be quite jarring for them to see certain words used or in a certain context or wherever, which isn't great. So yeah.
Yeah, so then when you're looking at, you said your growth has been going up, right? So do you think that was an important decision for you to see those numbers?
I think it hasn't hurt, but I think we're lucky that for the most part English is a fairly international language. For the most part. So a lot of people do get by. I think for example, even in Pakistan, we had the app translated into Urdu scripts as well. And then only recently, we made a hire in Pakistan, and maybe we should have found this out sooner, potentially, but he was like, actually, a lot of people are used to the Romanized Urdu, which is basically Urdu words, but in English letters, right? So now we're converting to Romanized Urdu for Pakistan, etc. So I think you can get far with just English. I wouldn't, in the scheme of everything, I probably wouldn't worry too much about that. I would probably only do it when you specifically want to really focus on that area. And have someone on the ground there, or have someone doing marketing or talk to people in that area, then it's probably helpful. Yeah,
so just another thing you were saying, you need local people to kind of review your app, and like speaking of marketing earlier, France, you had mentioned yesterday was a bit challenging. So can you share some learnings from that?
You just have to persist. I tell you, it's miserable and it's a bit depressing, even for some of our team members there who are dealing, with, call it, whenever we do any sort of marketing or the pushback they get from everyone. It's weird. Sometimes you get journalists trying to trap us. You get the far right messaging us. You get all sorts, and it's a bit unpleasant. But that's the reality, whether we like it or not. You just have to get on with it. I think for us, and I've always had, and you need a thick skin. I think. Like I said, more so probably in our area than maybe in launch goods area, I don't know. I don't know the bad side of the feedback that you guys get. I don't know.
I mean, we're only in English right now, so that's another reason.
Okay.
But we've been thinking about the localization, expanding regionally using different languages. So that, partly I was asking that question because I don't know the answer. But somebody had asked.
The instant, it's kind of chicken and egg to some degree, because you might be like, oh, we don't have a load of traffic here because it's not in their language, or vice versa. But probably, I would say the clues are probably in your Google Analytics. I would look at the country breakdown and see. Definitely, I think. For some of these countries, no doubt, you're trying to strike the balance of respecting their sensibilities and not pushing things too far, versus being a bit risque, but also versus standing out for hopefully the right reasons, and knowing that people will give you stick back. I still remember when we did our very first campaign on the London Underground, on the tube network there, on the metro, and I still remember someone literally scratched a swastika into the adverts, and you're like, wow, we're still, it wasn't that wasn't that long ago, but it happens. You just get on with it. It is what it is. You can get sorry for yourself, but I think you just have to crack on with it. It is what it is.
Yeah. Someone's asking a follow-up on your fundraising process. You raised around through YC or afterwards.
Yes.
Did you go fundraising again after that?
So we did our seed round YC 2017. We did 1.75 then, and then we did our Series A. In 2019, but like I said, Hamza, I tell you, some things just happen. Happy accidents again. We were doing this, so I kind of knew that all right, we're going to raise some more money here. We're going to do a round, and it was important to me that it was. I was, like I said, I try and keep things simple, and I know, especially in Series A, things can get really complicated because then investors will be like, oh yeah, like I said, we want a board seat, we want to be a director here, we want to have these particular rights. All this, the whole thing starts becoming complicated, and I was like. Maybe it was the banker in me, but I wanted to push back on a lot of this. So I was like, no, our Series A is going to be as simple as possible. We're not going to do all this other stuff. And I really just wanted one or max two investors. I didn't want tons of investors. I wanted to keep life simple. And even for our lead investor, who basically did our Series A happy accident. This guy, he hadn't invested in us, but he'd been messaging me for about a year and a half, and just trying to be helpful. He was obviously interested in us. And then randomly, he messaged me saying, oh, Shazza, I'm going to be in London if you want to meet up. And literally, this was at the time I was thinking of doing the Series A. And I was like, you know what, I actually have something to talk to you about then. And so we met in London, we had a coffee, and I said, I just basically kind of pitched that we're going to do a Series A, this is what we're about. And he was interested, and the next day sent him some data of where we're at. Day after that, he's like, I'm in. And literally that was it, and the rest was just paperwork. So alhamdulillah, we were very lucky. We did our Series A. I didn't even do a pitch deck. Literally, I never got around to doing it. A miracle, right? So I know these things don't happen, it's not the norm, but like I said, alhamdulillah, happy accidents sometimes happen. And even with him, and I was very upfront, I said, look, I want, I'm old school. Like if you're invested in the business, you're not going to have this whole valuation multiplier. They have all these multipliers and all this kind of, trust me, they have all sorts going on in these term sheets. I was like, take all that out. You'll have the same rights as me. If you're invested in the business, my equity is like your equity. We're not that different. And thankfully, he was willing to accept all of that and kept effectively the Series A extremely simple, without all the fancy kind of multipliers and all this kind of stuff as well. So he's treated the same way I'm treated, which is, I think is the right way of doing it.
And is that it? Like, did you go for more rounds?
No. So we were looking at doing a Series B. We weren't. So alhamdulillah, we're very lucky, and like I said, in the way we've run the business is, I've always made sure that we always have kind of a nice buffer. We should never be forced to raise money because it is a rubbish position to be in. Because then you are at the mercy of investors, and they can demand what they want, and you either will make a bad decision or you'll bust your decision because you need the money. And I never wanted us to be in that position. So for us, slow and steady. We've literally been very sensible with our burn, with how much we spend. We're trying to get to profitability and being able to control marketing spend, etc. Which is a very, very fortunate position. So like I said, slow and steady does win the race. And now, investors are looking for companies who are profitable or financially strong cash flows, which alhamdulillah we are, right? Which is an amazing position to be in. So it means that we don't have to do a Series B. So we were looking at it when the market conditions were really good. Maybe I kicked myself that we didn't do it. And don't get me wrong, investors were keen to. We were lucky investors were coming to us, and I was like, no, forget it. Like, chill out, leave us alone. And then the kind of market fell apart, and I actually thought, you know what? Let's not waste our energy trying to do a Series B. Let's just focus on the business. Let's get to our next milestones, which give us even more, hopefully, financial freedom. And then let's just figure out, the market will have recovered, hopefully, a little bit by then. Let's just see what the land lies and make a decision from there. And we're lucky, I know, alhamdulillah, we're in that position, but that's not by accident. It's through a lot of hard work of getting there. We intentionally didn't hire tons of people early on. We didn't spend tons of money on, taking big risks on marketing. Like, everything was very sensible.
Despite having investments.
Yeah.
I mean, in LaunchKit's case, we are completely bootstrapped. I think the only investment was an angel investment, which was like $10,000 or something.
Which is amazing. Bootstrap companies should get a lot more credit than they do.
But at the same time, it does come with its challenges, right? So now you have to really think about what it is that you're going to do or not going to do, or basically postpone until future when you have the money. So it has
raising money at the heart of it, it's a time equation. That's literally what it is. It's you're thinking, all right, with that money, can I do more? Because every day that passes is a day, not to be too morbid, but it's a day you're not going to get back, right? So you are, I want to make this day count, right? I've been doing this for 8 years now. Now, full time, right? It blows my mind. I'm like, where did 8 years go? But there you go, 8 years. And it's like, all right, by raising money, okay, it has allowed us to actually move quicker. And sometimes you're like, we could have bootstrapped the whole thing. We could have, I know we could have. It would have been slower, and you're working out that trade-off of, all right, well, does it make sense to try and speed things up, be more aggressive in certain areas, or is it slow and steady? So I don't think there's a right answer. Every business is quite different, but I genuinely don't. It's not bad. Don't feel compelled to raise money just because everyone else does. You don't need to. The press painted this picture.
Yeah. So just one more question here. And I know we started a bit late, so I'm just going to go a bit over, that's why. The person is asking, what do you think is required before you can quit your job and go all in?
A moment of madness. No. Obviously, you've got to believe in your idea, I think, no question. You have some form of backup plan, so have savings. Like I said, and I stand by this. I saved, well, two things. Alhamdulillah, I was very lucky in the job I did, which banking, it does pay well, and no doubt. And so it allowed me to, this is basically what I did, I saved up to quit. I didn't have a flashy still don't have a flashy lifestyle. I don't spend on stupid stuff. I saved up because I knew I wanted to be financially free, where I could just make any decision. And I still remember, and it sounds cheesy, but I was like, if this thing doesn't work out, the very worst case, I've got a roof over my head, I've got no debt, and I could just work in a supermarket, like literally. And it's, when you put it in that perspective, of course you can. But then you're like, you know what? I'm smart, I'm sure I can, I might not get the same job that was paying what it used to, but I can get another job that'll pay more than fine. So that it's, life is short. Take risks. I tell you, take risks. That's one thing I, sometimes kick myself. Should I have started my business even sooner than I did? I do think everything happens at the right time, and there's definitely blessing in the way things just panned out. So it's not always a hindsight thing, but like I strongly recommend, and we need Muslims to take risks, so try and take sensible risks. So save up, be boring, don't be, have that buffer, but then think about stuff that you're passionate about and take a risk. I'm telling you, it's the best. It might not work out, and remember, you have to be realistic. 90% of startups don't succeed, and it's true. And that's the miserable part of it, but it's worth the risk. You'll learn a ton if it doesn't work out. And probability-wise, your second, your third, maybe even your fourth thing will hopefully work out better because you just get smarter along the way. And it's a time thing. The sooner you start, the sooner hopefully you see success. But yeah, just the people who absolutely, let's say if you're just going to focus on business per se, the people who absolutely kill it are people who take risks. No question. Very rarely is it just an accident. It is hard work, and the ultimate is being able to take a risk. There's a reason why, for the most part, Muslims are. Let's say we don't have let's say we fall behind economically or in business, etc. In terms of really killing it, it's because we don't have the ability to take the risk. We're not as privileged. A lot of us aren't privileged. My parents didn't have loads of money, and so I had to kind of build up my own backup plan. Whereas for other people, and let's say mostly white males, they do come from privilege. Of course they do, and they have their ability. Silicon Valley is full of white males because they have the ability to take the risk. They can afford to drop out of uni or of college or wherever and still be fine. Their parents will give them money. Jeff Bezos had a lot of money from his parents, A lot of us try asking your parents for money, Good luck.
It's the other way around often.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So a fun question to end off here. Someone's asking tips for optimizing their Musk profile. So it's funny because I saw the question and I took a screenshot and sent it to my team because we're building a feature right now which will help people build a better profile. Because I'll tell you, and it is mostly, men are awful at creating their own profile. My God, I've seen horrors. So yeah, it sounds really bad. The bar is so low, particularly for men. You just have to have a normal profile and you're already winning, I'm telling you. It's true, I'm not even joking. So just by having a normal photo where you're wearing a shirt. Just wear a shirt. Put a description.
Yeah, just
put
wear
words,
a shirt.
that's
Not in the gym, not in front of your car. Just wear a shirt. Just literally say what you're looking for. Honestly, it seems baffling, but trust me, this is a real thing. Literally just that, you're already in the top percentile of people who will get success, right? So like I said, we're building a thing that will give you, like an actual human will look at your profile and give you critical feedback on how you can improve it, right? We're building this as a feature. I shouldn't announce product features, but that's a cardinal rule.
Maybe it's a good use for some of the rich aunties who are good.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because we want to, basically we want to help you along the journey, right? And I appreciate a lot of people, they have their marriage CVs and their bio data, right? Which people hate. So we're trying to help people in a better way express what they're about, yeah? So yeah, I'll probably say good photos and yeah, a bit of a description about you.
Cool.
One
more question? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Mohsin.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry, just one. So we'll go with Mohsin. He was first, yeah.
What would it take for you to sell Mohsin?
Oh, the magic question. So, and I'm going to put this on record. So, with Match Group, who obviously sued us, they're the monopoly player in this industry. They run this industry, like, beyond belief. They own everyone, pretty much. For me, and I'm going to say it, there's no sum that I would ever sell to them now on principle. I know if I did that, I'd be selling myself out, and it wouldn't sit well with me now. And like I said, for me, that's eyes are open now, seeing how certain companies operate, and I'm like, they're not people who I would want to associate with or be part of. So for me, a straight red line. There's no number. They come out and say $1 billion, I would say no. Like there literally is none. In terms of, like I said, I've been doing this for 8 years. And I in my head, every 10 years is the point where you just look at your life and figure out what you want to do. So like I started banking at 21, and I told myself then, when I hit 30, I have to figure out what I want to do next. And 30, I quit banking and started this. And now I've said when I hit 40, which is 2 years, damn, 2 more years, I'm like, I need to just assess what I'm doing and what I want to do next. Hopefully, I'm hoping that Muzz will be in an even bigger, stronger position. Because I've got a list as long as your arm of other ideas and stuff I want to do. But I'm a big believer in focus. Do one thing really well before you move on to the next. And there's so much stuff, and this is what I mean by when the team grow and the team, alhamdulillah, are so capable, all these ideas before that were just ideas, you're looking at it now thinking, my God, we can actually build some of this stuff and build it really well, which still gets me excited. So it might be that I hit 40 and I'm like, screw that, we're still so much to do here, and I'm still excited. I'm tired, but I'm excited by it still. It doesn't feel like work, alhamdulillah, which is I'm so fortunate for that to be the case. So no doubt, I think there will be a point, I'm sure, because there will be a point where I'm like, all right, the next chapter of things I want to do. I've got loads of interests, not necessarily in tech, or in digital tech, in other aspects of tech as well, outside of this. So I'm sure, but the key for me is, hopefully, inshallah, it's in safe hands. Which is hard because, like I said, we're not in a luxurious position where there were loads of, let's say, Muslim businesses out there who could even acquire us or merge or whatever, right? So part of us is making sure that we grow to be, let's say, a bit of a broader company, where it makes it, we're not just locked into this, call it this dating sphere, because I think that does a disservice to what we want to actually become.
Okay.
Yeah.
So actually, go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, so
Hopefully it's not a long one.
I'm asking this question more for research because one of my clients is a marriage specialist,
Cool.
a bit more on the conservative side because he's a scholar as well.
Cool.
So you said that Muslims don't date and marry, which is a way of life, but also then the word dating is kind of in your name.
Yeah.
So yesterday at the panel talked about changing perspectives and changing people view things, right? So do you find that regardless of the taboo around the word dating before marriage, has that affected the perception people have of us as a company and what it does?
Yeah.
Or have you seen that actually, based on the data people come on, and because of what it does on the app, the idea of dating is just gone, and it was just like SEO media?
Yeah. I actually think it's a little bit like the phrase modest fashion, a little bit, in that. So we're trying not to say dating standalone, but we try and say Muslim dating or halal dating, right? And what do we mean by that? It effectively is, I'm getting to know you to get married, basically, right? And it's hands off, and literally that's kind of the mindset. And no doubt, and don't get me wrong, like, from the UK, generally, I'm simplifying massively, but generally British Muslims are a lot more traditional. Let's say in the States are a lot liberal or slightly more relaxed on certain things. So the phrase halal dating or Muslim dating in the States, I don't think many people necessarily would bat an eyelid. In the UK, people are like, oh, dating haram, and we get all that. I do think for us it's trying to own that phrase, if you will, because we know, whether you like it or not, you have to look at what people are searching for and the way in which, because we have to talk to them in their language. We're not setting the language, we're looking at young Muslims, and I'm focused on I remember when we set up, I was like, I want to be with the 21-year-olds growing up. I'm not here to service the 30-year-olds. I'm not saying that they're past it, but the problem is the 30-year-old, they're already probably quite regimented on the way they want to find someone, whereas the 21-year-old is way more open to figuring out this whole world of how do I find a partner, a Muslim partner, right? So for us, it's owning that phrase. It's trying to help navigate that phrase in terms of, all right, what's cool and what's not. How do you get to know someone? Giving them resources around how do you get to know someone the right way, all that kind of stuff. So for me, yeah, it's a bit more, we're trying to own the word and educate that word. And internally, like I said, I tell the guys, let's not use the word dating standalone. Let's always say halal dating or Muslim dating so that it sets the right tone of what it is. Because people, they're not searching for Muslim marriage app, whether we like it or not. They're searching for Muslim dating app, but we know what they mean. The very fact they're saying Muslim dating app. They're not looking to casually date.
Like the search data shows you that.
Exactly, and that's just what they're looking for. And that's why for us, it's all right, well, we need to be able to be found by these people. Therefore, phrases like that, we need to own, whether we like it or not. So I know we could be high and mighty and be like, no one should ever, Muslims should not use the word dating because it has these connotations. I think explained well and reinforced enough, I think you can. It's like for us, I remember when we set up and the original name, Muzz, some people are like, oh, Muzz using that derogatory, etc. I think for us, we've owned that word now where we have other Muslim startups calling their thing Muzz something, So I'm like, screw it, we own the word, and that's kind of my mindset where hopefully we'll try and own this definition somewhat.